It pairs very interestingly because depending on like I guess I'll take right now if I were to take this a slice of the amount of time I've been devoting, it's been 80-20
Mhm.
for me. Like I've been putting 80% of my time into Destiny, granted because we have Shadowkeep coming up, and 20% of my time into 14. And I think like Yoshi P does say that 14 is a game that you should take breaks from. But as you know, when you're a content creator, it's a little bit different because you have to have this sort of like, I it's hard keeping two main games, and 14 used to be my main game, so it's like you're always trying to figure out something to do in the game that the director himself says you should be taking breaks from.
Welcome everybody to Casually Hardcore, episode 36 here. Joining us, we've got Avalonstar. We're going to be talking a lot about Destiny, about Final Fantasy, maybe even a little bit of WoW Classic. If you guys haven't checked us out before, last week we had Xandri on the podcast. You can find us on Google Play. I was about to say Stadia. Stadia, why not? Spotify, SoundCloud, pretty much wherever podcasts are found. We've got a lot to dive into, and if you guys don't know or haven't followed Avalonstar, we got to hang out with him out of the media tour. Fantastic creator, really big into the UI, used to work for Twitch, I believe. It was a great time hanging out with you. He was at our table at the media tour.
Yep.
Bryan, why don't you introduce yourself to people who might not have heard of you and what you do and what you love to play?
Hi, I'm Avalonstar. I also go by Bryan, which is why I'll be going by Avalonstar during this podcast, or Avalon, because just to prevent any confusion. I guess I'm a passion driven gamer. I like playing MMOs right now, and like JRPGs, and Destiny 2 and Final Fantasy XIV are sort of my main games. I used to be a web designer, so I've had a complete other career before this one as a content creator. So I have a lot of like knowledge and experience that I bring into gaming via that. And I'm Avalonstar on all the social medias and stuff like that. And got a wonderful Discord full of amazing people too.
So guys, if you're watching this podcast or also just listening, check the links in the description below. We'll have links to his Twitter, to his Twitch, to his YouTube. That way you can go give him a follow, check out his content, and say hello from the Work to Game crew. So just a little bit of business before we dive in. This is always a conversational podcast, so we have a outline. The goal is hopefully we can try to stick to it. It'd be a first for us if we actually stick to the full outline. But we do want to say thank you to our partnership with Exit Lag. If you guys are having any kind of lag issues in your game, you might want to check them out. If you use the link in the description or the code do work, you can save 20% off. You get 3 free days to check them out. And also, we just recently had a new business partnership with Shadow PC. We've been playing around with them. We were actually in the pre-show talking about cloud gaming. If you guys are interested in any of that, check also the link. We'll have a link in the description below as well. If you want to check them out, you get $10 off, which is like you can basically try it out for free using our link, and then you can check it out for a couple days and see if it's something that is interesting to you, as well as if it will work in your area. All right, guys, are you ready to have some fun? There's a lot going on this week, and I don't want this to be a WoW Classic podcast, but I have to open up with it. Hot take, WoW Classic, Avalonstar, where do you fall?
I'd like to give it a shot because like when it came out when I was in college, I played it for about 5 minutes. I'm a very visual person, right? So I went in and I'm like, I don't like the look of the characters. Went in for like the training area and then logged out after 5 minutes. I happened to owe my community, since we hit a sub goal, like I would be bringing my character into WoW. Granted, we're designing these characters in a, in like that character creator. So it looks like my OG original character looks like he's in his midlife crisis or something like that. But I'm actually really looking forward to, to actually giving it a shot and seeing if it works for me at all, having never played it, really.
Chris, queue times. How you getting around them? Do you have streamer privilege?
I mean, I'm sure people are asking that, except that Bryan's not on. So the way I'm getting around them is I played WoW Vanilla, so I understand how the servers get congested. So what I do is I set my alarm earlier than other people. And then I get up and I toss myself in a shorter queue. And then I, take a nap, get breakfast, whatever. And then I'm on when I would normally want to play. So instead of waiting until peak hours to fire up my client and then being told there's 20,000 people that had the same idea, I'm doing that. And then like when the servers went down for an hour, I didn't take that hour and go do other things. I quickly went and got food and I sat at my desk and I ate and I kept booting the client. And after 9 minutes, it led me to the character select screen, which means I'm past the queue. So as soon as the server came back up, I was in. And so like just understanding how that kind of works, it gets you way in front of everybody else. And then don't take breaks. Like, so instead of playing an hour in the morning and an hour at night, play 2 hours in one chunk, because that queue is for that initial serving. Mm-hmm. So when you get off, assume that you're logging off for the day, and that'll save you a lot of frustration.
So on that note, though, it's like now that you actually have the Shadow PC installed on your actual phone, I'm curious to see is that if you have to go to work, if there's a value in you booting it up, if it's got that 5 hour queue, you're like, well, I'm going to be home in 5 hours. Might as well just try to log in now and put myself into the queue. Or if you don't have access to that, you can always call a loved one and be like, hey, listen, I know it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I would like to have the opportunity to try to play when I get off work. Could you log me in and just tell me what the queue time is saying? So the queue time is an interesting thing. Before we kind of dive into our main topic with Final Fantasy XIV and Destiny 2, essentially the Year of Shadows, better together. People have been saying, WoW Classic failure at launch because they have like 100 billion people trying to log in to these servers. Should they have made more servers? Chris, you got a smile on your face. I want your thoughts.
So I've already recorded my initial impressions after I logged off the first day. Haven't put out that video, but I wanted to get them fresh. And then I've already recorded a video talking on this topic that'll be coming out. But simple answer is like, what other business would you say was a failure because it had too many clients? Like, what other business would you say, yeah, that store, they like sold out of all their stuff at the price that they set? Failure.
Oh,
like,
man.
where else would you do that? So like, yes, servers are finite. And so like, I know we think of like the cloud as this remote thing, and there's just an infinite amount of internet out there, and they'll just spin up another server, but like that represents a physical machine and things like that. So they set out to sell a certain amount of space on their servers, and they've got too many people that want it. So yes, more would be better, but I don't think failure is quite the right word.
Have people really been saying that it's a failure because they can't, like, it's like, hey, I'm the con's a failure because I wanted to see Marvel news in Hall H, but I had to wait 36 hours to get in. Like, that's completely backwards logic to me.
Well,
all right, here we go.
The demand is there.
Yeah.
And like it's limited supply. This is like economics 101.
Chris.
Here we go. I just Googled WoW Classic launch. Business Insider launched. It was a fiasco. Kotaku launch was kind of nostalgic. Sure. A Rocky launch is kind of nostalgic. Sure. Rock, paper, shotgun. Queues are long enough that people are even queuing in games. Polygon launch experience dependent on your race. Like, so many of these are just, they're negative. Overcrowded servers. Drawing on nostalgia, like they're ripping on like, oh, well, it's a failure because it's old content. It's a failure because people can't get in.
Look at the front page of YouTube. Like the first thing I saw when there was like the same thing, YouTubers saying the same thing. Honestly, I think there's a general fatigue though that within the gaming community of this negative kind of, driving the clicks kind of perspective. Like I honestly wonder if there's been a shift in the algorithm though, because when I went and started crunching some numbers, still doing a lot of research, but essentially gamer fatigue is kind of reaching a point where they don't, all right, like, oh, someone's got a negative title, avoid it, and look for something a little bit more. But there's still that mindset. I don't know if YouTubers have technically caught on, but immediate like negative draws in people. Like, oh, is it a failure? Is it a failure? Honestly, I think when you go look at like over 1.2 million people watching WoW Classic on streams on Twitch, like that says beyond the like just the demand and the supply, and beyond that there is a general interest. I think this is a science experiment that we're getting to see play out in real time. I think answer the question.
Amazing, actually,
go ahead. Yeah, why is it amazing?
I think it's amazing, honestly, because like we were talking before we even went live, the concept of the fact that like we're living in a world where WoW gets to try again, where we're getting the nostalgia, that we're getting the true nostalgia that people are supposedly tired of, right?
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, we're getting all the remakes, we're getting all the of movies and games and all these things, and it's like, hey, I'm tired of this stuff, but give me that the right one. Then you want to hit that nostalgia button for me, then you know, I'll gladly jump in and do it. And it's just so like, WoW has been that, you know, that game for so many people. So I don't know. I think they're trying to put a 15-year-old game in today's logic when people want to go back to when things were simple again. When things were simple and hard and different and not, you know, not run by marketing departments. You know, it was like for the love of the game, that kind of thing. And I mean, I don't play WoW, but I can kind of understand, having played like Ragnarok Online back in the day, like, yeah. Understand the drawback to that. Ragnarok Online is a game that I will always go like, man, I want to play that. Like, I know exactly what it would take. I know exactly what I would do, but I'd want to do it again just because I want to relive that moment back then. And I think, you know, it's not something you can measure with metrics. It's not something you can measure in numbers. It's this tangible, feelsy feeling that, you know, no advertising agency or no shareholder can understand. You know, it doesn't drive up the stock price at all in a direct manner, so they don't get it. And I think the same thing is for, you know, for people that, like, I would wonder, the people that wrote those articles that you found, Chris, that, like, are those people that played it are those people that, one, played it, or two, just looking for something to shit on?
I mean, I think it's fun to crap on it. It's fun to see you want to see something fail. So you had it in your head that it's going to be a failure, and then some part of it goes negative, and you're like, wow, they botched it. Like, way to mess that up. Knew that was coming. And it's like, I think you're wrong. Like, and that's okay. I've been wrong before, and I'll be wrong again.
Yeah.
I knew that I would like it. I knew that my bias, my nostalgia goggles, would at least carry me through enough to justify that first month sub. And then I would be able to step back, pull off the goggles and say, do I want to keep paying for this, or do I want to get out while I'm ahead, right? You're ahead at the table. You're up money. Do I want to just pack up my money and leave? Like, okay, that was fun. You know, leave on a high note, very like Breaking Bad. Like, let's just end while it's fun.
It's completely okay to do that too. It's not like, you know, you have to buy into a game and you buy into it forever.
Right.
You know, like, these subscription models are like, oh man, it's $14.99 a month to play Final Fantasy. Like, well, we have an unlimited free trial, and if you want to try it a month and you don't like, you know, the patches and ARR, then okay, thanks, we tried.
You're out $15.
Yeah.
There's worse things that can happen to you, I promise.
Yeah, you didn't invest 60 or 120, and then you're like, that was not worth it. I want to dive in on an idea of nostalgia real quick though, because you know, like, Avalon, you're talking about Ragnarok. Chris, you're saying, like, you know, you're like, well, is nostalgia going to be something that carries us forward from WoW Classic? The only way we know, the only answer to that question is here in 6 months. If here in 6 months it's like, hey, Chris, like, are we going to play 14 today? And you're like, oh man, I'd love to, but you know, I'm working on, you know, this whatever in WoW Classic, etc. If people are still driven in 6 months, it's going to be, I think, proof that there is an economy, that there is a market willing to support it. I am rooting for WoW Classic beyond belief, but I'm going to share my thoughts regarding nostalgia. Chris, is nostalgia enough?
Well, I mean, I think, unfortunately for the news cycle, the only way to know if it's successful in 6 months is to wait. And we're all on the same train. It's going to take all of us 6 months to get there. And so there's no way to get in advance and see that coming. So we're all guessing. I don't really know if nostalgia enough is I don't think that's enough, because then you're relying on the initial player base all playing, and many of them aren't going to play. But I will say that, like, there are a lot of people who never played that wanted to, that are also playing. There are a lot of people who maybe, I mean, I'm seeing people in some of the forums that I'm in say, I wasn't going to play, but after hearing how much fun you guys are having, I think I'm going to. So that word of mouth, that contagiousness that is a hallmark of all successful Game of the Year games. How many people bought God of War that never played a God of War, didn't watch it coming up to launch, heard about how good it was, went out and bought it? How many people did that with Octopath Traveler? How many people have done that with Shadowbringers? Those are the titles that come to mind recently, but the list goes on and on and on and on. How many people sit there and say, okay, now that my friends are playing, I'll play? How many people got into WoW the first time because of that? I got tired of all my friends talking about WoW all the time. Isn't that what Dado said? Didn't Dado say that he was the last of his friends to hop in? When we had Dado here on the podcast, he's like, I wasn't going to play WoW, but I got tired of my friends always talking about this freaking game, and I didn't know what they were talking about. So I think it's enough because it's a $15 a month game, guys. It only has to be worth 1 month. $60, you should buy 4 months of this at once and then make up your mind. If you're going to compare it to other $60 full titles.
I think that's the thing. It's like, it's not just nostalgia. Like, nostalgia isn't enough, but if the nostalgia you have also has an aspect of connection, then yes, that is enough. Because if you have the people that are going to keep you there, and I mean, I can say this from experience, because like, of all, the community that I've built on my channel through playing 14 alone with my wife, to starting an FC, to growing that FC, and to pulling people into both 14 and D2 that have like, you know what, I've been interested in this, but because I trust you and because I have a connection to you, Avalon, I'm going to play this. And then it's up to me to keep that connection going so that we can continue to play it together. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, okay, I have nostalgia for a game. Like, going back to the Ragnarok Online thing, I have nostalgia for Ragnarok Online. I can go back. If I go back alone, it's be like, okay, well, that was fun. Whereas if I go back in with my wife, because we played together for years, it's going to be that we're going to be reliving this thing. We're going to be grinding for the things that we used to get, glamour of the end game kind of thing. Like, so the nostalgia for some people won't be enough because it was just them. But if it's nostalgia plus people, like people are squad streaming this on Twitch. The biggest streams are all squads. They're all on Discord. They're all talking together because that is part of the experience. And you can't look at an MMO in the view of a single player game because it's not that.
Right.
And that's the wonder of MMOs in general, is that you get to play them with other people, and those people pull you forward. Even if you're the last one, even if you're Dado and you're the last one to come in, you'll still figure out if those connections are strong enough to keep you going in that game.
So I'm going to speak on it for just a brief minute, nostalgia, because I have no nostalgia for WoW Classic. My nostalgia is Final Fantasy XI. That was my entry point into the MMO. My first RPG online was Phantasy Star Online, but that's not a traditional MMO. And so then you go into Final Fantasy XI. It's this like living, breathing world. When I'm sitting here, I'm only at level 6 in WoW Classic. I wasn't planning on playing it, but then literally I was like, why not? Like, just from an experiment perspective, let me go touch it. And then I get in, I'm playing, and I'm learning. I have no connection to the Horde. I've got no connection to this world. And immediately I'm blown away by it. It's just like, holy crap. This feels amazing. And then all of a sudden this like seed of hope gets planted. And it's hope that if this is successful, if the market says, WoW Classic, that's what we've been missing. If the market says, in our pursuit to grow MMOs, we lost something, we sacrificed something. And we kept playing. And so the data kept showing that like, oh, we like this. But then in reality, like the data is just telling us that people are playing because of nostalgia and because of sunken cost. But the heart and soul of what makes an MMO, that community, that driving factor, that like the world's dangerous, we have to survive together, or we die alone. That kind of concept, not a single player solo crush everything, and then eventually you get to some content that requires people to play together. The heart and soul, I think, for the MMO is being fought right now, and it's being tested. And that's where the seed of hope is like, if the market can show that it's sustainable, like if more people play WoW Classic than WoW Retail, it's the same sub. If all of us, and they're like, hey, holy crap, WoW is back up to 12 million subscribers, but they're not playing Retail, then it tells the world like what actually makes an MMO an MMO. And we thought it was all these other things, and not that all quality life is bad quality of life. But the thought is that could Final Fantasy XI remastered, and the only reason I have to tag in remastered to it is because Play Online, the PlayStation dev kits, like they would have to say, okay, we're going to get the heart and soul of what made it, but we're going to have to remaster it because we can't put that in the market today, because there's certain aspects that WoW Classic's easy to get installed, it's easy to jump into. 11, I've got that installed. And I play that from time to time, but it's not like, oh, just do this. It's like, hey, Chris, here's these 15 steps that you need to take to play this game. That's 14 steps too many. WoW Classic was install, and then it loaded up for me, and I was ready to go. It
installs so fast.
Oh, it's so small too.
So small.
Yeah, it's so small in comparison.
When 2.6 gigabytes is small.
Yeah, exactly.
People had the fancy people had DSL connections back then. Like it. Ooh, DSL. So it's so fast.
So anyway, that's where I hope that in 6 months that it's crushing. I hope that in 6 months it's just going amazingly well, because I think that could essentially, does that put us on a new trajectory? People talk about like, okay, well, aren't they, if they continue to release the expansions like they did, aren't they going to eventually end up back at BFA where they're not happy? Mm-hmm. Maybe, but maybe there's also there's an opportunity. It all depends on how the community responds. And it's going to be an interesting test, because you said you're married. I'm married. Chris is married. We all have wives. We all have lives. We all have family. You know, how does this get balanced in today's economy? And does it make sense, right? Because you play Final Fantasy XIV Avalon, you play Destiny. If you kind of touch into WoW, etc., like, yeah, it gives us a lot of content that we can create. But how can a person who's logging off of work, yeah, exactly.
I'd like to log off work.
Like, I'm logging off for work tonight, guys. Like, what do you do, buddy? But then being able to kind of participate at the same time, also have a healthy balance in life. Because worst case scenario is, oh gosh, like, you know, people forgot to, you know, feed their kids, and, you know, like, you hear there could be horror stories because people can get so obsessed and connected with these games. So I think WoW Classic looks to me like a battle for the heart and soul of what it means to be an MMO in 2019, and it's going to be, I'm so excited to watch what happens. That's my piece on it. Okay.
I agree. It's going to be a great case study either way.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we actually get that chance in modern gaming to see that.
That's so important. That's so important. Okay. So, all right, let's dive into our main topic, because one of the really cool things about Avalon, that if you guys don't know, 14 content creator, also huge Destiny creator. We had Dado on the podcast. We've had Rick Caucus on the podcast. I think this is a great conversation to bring in the best of both worlds. One of the things that I did before I was a content creator is I played an insane amount of Destiny. Chris did too. We started, and then a lot of people found us because of 14, which is fantastic. And Destiny 2 launched. It failed. It betrayed me, in my opinion. And I quit. And I'm so happy I did. And I'm so happy to be back right now, because they've made the corrections that I said that they needed to make. I said, like, here's the litmus list, guys. Like, we can't keep doing this. Like, you got to fix it. And I think the reason they're making a lot of these changes is because they left Activision. And that's my personal belief. I think it's somewhat, the actions are supporting that from a factual perspective, but it's still rooted in theory. Like, I do not have evidence that says, here in the contract, Bungie had to be do stupid things. But that's just my personal belief. It's more of an emotional argument than it is like rooted into actual factual stuff. But they're making the changes. I've come back and I am blown away. And then we scheduled Avalon, and I'm like, he keeps playing Destiny. This is what I like. This is great. This is the year of shadows. So my first kind of main question here. Yoshi P continues to reinforce that Final Fantasy XIV is a game that you can take breaks from. How does this pair well with Destiny, Avalon?
It pairs very interestingly, because depending on, I guess, I'll take right now, if I were to take this a slice of the amount of time I've been devoting, it's been 80-20 for me. Like, I've been putting 80% of my time into Destiny, granted, because we have Shadowkeep coming up, and 20% of my time into 14. And I think, Yoshi P does say that 14 is a game that you should take breaks from. But as when you're a content creator, it's a little bit different, because you have to have this sort of it's hard keeping two main games, and 14 used to be my main game. So it's like you're always trying to figure out something to do in the game that the director himself says you should be taking breaks from. So Destiny fits in to that, mainly because Destiny is Luke and team, they look at it differently. They're like, we want to keep giving you reasons to play the game. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, I have to grind for this, I have to grind for that. And it's just sort of like what, you grinding for levels and WoW, you kind of like that feeling. Like, I'm grinding for pinnacle weapons in Destiny, or I'm grinding for triumphs and stuff like that. I feel like it fits in well together, except for, if it's timed right. The reset days are both on Tuesday. It seems like, expansions come out at the same time, or big content pieces come out at the same time. I've already written off October as Shadowkeep month for me. I'm like, sorry guys, I'm going to be playing a crap ton of Shadowkeep, but then
do you hope 5.1 is November then? Do you hope 5.1 is November?
I hope 5.1 is either late October or early November, because it's it's going to be, that's where it's hard to balance. Because I used to have this thing on my stream where I was able to time like 60. They were 16 weeks between patches. So I'd have 8 weeks of FF and then 8 weeks of something else. But then that didn't really work because then you'd have like, oh hey, season of the Drifter right here. I'm like, oh crap. Like that's not gonna work, is it? And so like that, and I'm a very like, again, I'm a passion driven gamer. Like there are things I'm gonna want more in Destiny, I'm gonna want more in 14, depending on where my community falls to. So I think they fill into each other very nicely, but you know, timing's timing. The month, you know, September, October, patch months, reset days, they're never really gonna kind of lay themselves out the way you want them to.
Chris, what do you think about what about that though? Because the idea, some people get upset by the idea that Yoshi P says, "Yeah, take breaks from the game." What do you think?
So I think breaks are nice because what it says is like, here's the core content I want you to enjoy. So when you design a break, you say, okay, people are going to play one class. They're going to get through, you know, this percentage of the content. So that if they like PvP, they probably won't like, you know, this glamour event or whatever. And so you say, okay, we've got 10 different kinds of food on the buffet. And we know that statistically each player is only going to eat from like 6 of the plates here. And they're mostly going to eat from this one. And so when you say breaks, you design breaks around that casual player. So for the hardcore players that are like, well, then I'm going to be bored. Well, you're just going to have to eat for more plates. So, you know, people who are like, well, I like PvP and I like raiding, Savage, and I like having a house and I like crafting. Well, don't you worry. Like, you're going to have plenty to do in this game. But if you find yourself saying, I don't want breaks and I only like raiding, whether a director says that or not, no game keeps up with hardcore raiders. The contents raid patches have to be set around something that lets people develop them on an affordable schedule and lets other players play through them. There would be so overwhelming if they came out with Savage and then 2 weeks later, like, oh, you didn't clear that? Here's a new Savage. All of us would be like, what? I don't even know all the mechanics yet. So, I mean, there's a reason for the pace. I do think that as a gamer, it's a nice chance to do things like fit in WoW Classic. It's a nice thing to do, like fit in at that Switch game that you're interested in playing or whatever.
Do you think that makes for a healthier community?
I do. I think that it gives you perspective. I think going to WoW Classic and seeing these things that I like will, when going back to 14, I mean, I'm still actively going to be checking in on 14 throughout the week, keeping my retainers flipped, maybe try to get my Eden clears each week, at least get my tanks fully geared out to reasonable levels of gear. Mm-hmm. That way, when I come back at 5.1, I'm ready. But I'm mostly going to be focused on Classic for probably the next month or so here. And I think that when I come back, there'll be something really refreshing about like, oh, well, now I have this, you know, newfound love for grinding. What a great chance to go knock out the rest of Miner, because my Botanist and my Fisher are at cap and my Miner's not. My Miner's in the mid 70s. So it's like, I can knock that out in a few hours. A few hours is nothing. So like you can come back and you can have this newfound energy for things that maybe you couldn't do on otherwise. Or things that the game you took a break to play don't have. I mean, there will be no looking for groups. So maybe I'll have this desire to come back and just sit in roulettes all day. Mm-hmm. If it's really that good of a feature, right, and I miss it that much, maybe it'll be fun to do that.
So I want to follow up with Avalon regarding the concept, though, of kind of the community, because it's like you look at 14 and you look at Destiny. Obviously, there's some threads in which that it is both are MMORPGs, especially as stated by the developers. Luke Smith calls it an action MMO, which is great. But as far as it goes from a community, like those are also two widely different games, right? You know, you have like a JRPG, and then you also have that of a shooter. You know, in that regards, like how does your community essentially respond, you know, to those two completely different types? Like, oh, you like anime? Well, I like westerns. Like, okay, great. This is the anime western show. You know.
I think my community is in a good place because, you know, my content isn't solely based on what I'm playing. So like they know they can get the same conversation out of me, whether I'm playing, you know, 14 or D2. We talk about 14 while playing D2 and vice versa. That really depends on what they bring up. But at the same time, like I know there are people that just watch me for one or the other. So I know who I can expect to see, you know, when I'm playing one or the other. But it, you know, as much as I've wanted to like schedule things out, I'm horrible at that. I hate structure, authority, even when the authority is myself. I kind of hate that stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna kind of ride my wave here. And if you want to come along with me on this journey, then sure. But if not, then I'm sorry. I'm just gonna have to rotate back whenever I get to it. That seems to be where I'm most comfortable. But yeah, the community is sort of like they know that I get into my grindy phases. They know that I get into my addictions, and they're just kind of, for the most part, glad to come along for the ride.
So
I'm lucky. I'm lucky in that way.
So what would you take from Final Fantasy XIV and actually implant it into the Destiny community?
I think it's mostly, well, you said community. I had this list of stuff.
No, you can take community. You can take it out. I'm just saying, like, what would you take from 14? Like what are the things that you're just like, man, when you're playing Destiny, I wish I had X.
I wish I had different ways to experience like past content. Like it's funny because I'm taking like a best friend through D2 for the first time, and she's playing through the like the cutscenes and stuff. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this cutscene in forever, but you can't, like, you don't have an unending journey like in Destiny 2 as you do in 14. You can't relive those moments as easily. With the community, shucks, I wish that, I wish I could take 6 people into a patrol area. I wish I could, take those larger teams. I wish there were larger pieces of content. I miss my Halo big map battle.
Oh, praise God. Yes. Amen, brother.
I miss getting into a tank and shooting people, or getting into a ship and just shooting people top down, and like I loved those parts of like the old Halo games, and they definitely made, I'd love those big team sort of battles back in, and I mean 14 has that with PvP, with like frontline and stuff like that. I'd like that. I'd love to see that in D2, just some of the larger bits, because like D2 has the possibility and can support a larger world when it comes to like storytelling and when it comes to things like that. But I think they just, infrastructure wise, technology wise, they just haven't really, flipped the switch on that yet. And that's, I'd really like to see them do, like, just make the world feel bigger, make you feel a little bit smaller amongst all your peers. Yeah, that would probably be the 2 things I'd want to see from 14 to D2.
Chris?
So from 14 to D2, I wish there was more of a way to kind of change between the classes. Logging out and kind of redoing that. That's something I always admire about 14, is that ability to, like, if I'm waiting on you, or if you say, oh, I'm on my hunter tonight, and I'm like, oh, well, I don't really want to play my Titan with you. So like I could just switch instead of kind of having to log out. And I only say that as an Xbox player. So as an Xbox player, the load times in D2 can be really frustrating. And so it would make it easier to kind of seamlessly jump and say, okay, as long as you're in one of these safe zones on a map, like as long as you're this close to a starting point or something, you can just swap right out. It's like, okay, go to the nearest starting zone, swap out, jump back in.
Yeah.
Because the load out, load in, like that just takes forever.
It does. But that is a beautiful point about like the 14 being able to, like, oh, you're playing a tank? All right, I'll switch over to healer, or I'll switch over to DPS. Like, it just, there's no, like, even in WoW, like, you have to log out to your character and then, do that. So, and then you have to travel. It's like, oh, nope, we're good. I love that about 14. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, so we're going to keep going. So like, I think that going the other way, one of the things I admire about D2 is that it's very arcade-like when you just want to pick something up. So like, if right now Zoom went offline and we were like, and Zoom said it's going to be down for 25 minutes, and we're all Xbox players or we're all PC players until they get crossplay enabled, and we want to finish this podcast, we could all hop on and just knock out a strike. We could do that. Doesn't matter that I'm a lower light level than Bryan and Bryan's a lower level than the other Bryan. It doesn't matter. Avalon can come do more damage. That's fine. But I'm a decent shot. I play first person shooters 2 to 4 hours a week every Wednesday, and a couple. And then like when I get a fascination with one, I'll play an hour or 2 every night for like a week straight, which is where you start to see improvement. Playing once a week just maintains your skill. Yeah. And so I'm a decent shot. So I'd have crappy gear, but we could jump in and just handle it. And that's something that, like, if I have a friend that wants to just hop into WoW Classic now, I'm only level 17. I'm not level 60. And I already would be like, yeah, I'm not going to come back and play with you. And I feel the same in 14. Like, oh, well, I want to jump in. Awesome. So I'm going to set you up on your ARR quests. I'm going to give you a bucket of money so you never worry about teleports or anything like that again. And I will see you in 300 hours. Like, if you get to a dungeon in your story, let me know. I'll give you an instant cue. We'll go pop through that dungeon. If you have a question about a boss, I'll answer it. If you want to have an all-natural experience, I'll keep my mouth shut. I would love to see kind of you go, whoa, I didn't expect this mechanic or whatever. Whatever you want, that's fine. But for the vast majority of that 300 hours, just text me when you need me. I'll be somewhere you can't see me. And that's so frustrating for the fact that Destiny makes it so easy to share that.
Well, I mean, they're going to make it even easier because when all three of us log in on October 1st, we're all level 750. We're all level 750. They're just oh, we're just doing that. Okay, cool. I love just being able to tell people you don't have to grind. No, really, you don't. I'm telling Jen, I'm if you want my wife, if you want to play Destiny with me, day one, Shadowkeep, you can log in. We can do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something that's so nice. And I mean, I know they want to compress ARR a bit in 5.3, but it's still going to be that sort of infinitely growing game, which Luke said in his director letters that they don't want. They don't want this infinitely growing game because there's going to, you're going to leave a trail of technical debt.
Right. Well, the question is do you want the vertical growth or do you want horizontal growth?
Yeah,
and that's and right now 14 has a lot of vertical growth, and that's not a bad thing. It has, I think, probably one of the best narratives. It's probably one of the best Final Fantasy games in the last 10, maybe even the last 20 years. It's just that good of a story, but that's vertical. And that also requires the investment to really get the payoff. It's nice that you can play Shadowbringers and have a really good story and really enjoy it. But if you've been playing the game all this way, it has that, it's even better. I think Stormblood, in my opinion, was not up to par. It just didn't resonate where I hoped it would. But that's okay. A lot of people really like Stormblood, and I'm really glad that you can see within a community that people might like one thing over the other, and that's really great. But when I look at horizontal, it's where at some point, the level's capped, but there's all this other stuff to do, right? And one of the things that I've always wished to see within 14 is that concept of the level sync, where the single player game that is Final Fantasy, that sits on top of the MMO that is Final Fantasy 14. I wish that all that single player stuff could be also multiplayer, where if we could level sync and if my friend or my Brandon, my brother, came in and he decided that he wanted to play, I didn't have to either roll a new character or I could play my existing character and I could just be synced to him. We could go do all the stuff together, dungeons, which we can already do, but just the quests, all of it. If it was just yep, let's go. That would be my ideal solution over that of the jump potion, where you don't have to do, I think we saw Skill Up. He did it 362 hours. He also did, he tried to, do more things like that. That is only going to get larger, and even if with any kind of 5.3 squish, I hope that they don't take quests out. I hope they just make them side quests, but it still doesn't necessarily make the game smaller. It just makes it ideally more streamlined.
Yeah.
If I was going to put anything from 14 into Destiny, I would love to see, more of that crossplay element, right? Because y'all both hinted at it. It's that one of the beautiful things about it: play on PlayStation, play on PC, hopefully soon play on Xbox, play in the cloud, play on whatever. It's your character's your character. You can go play wherever you want to play, and that is something that is even with cross save that Destiny just got, which is a huge addition. Should have been day one, but I understand. There's business and legal and all that weird stuff. But and they say they're working on ideally crossplay. I think crossplay is the future for these kind of games, and that would be ultimately where I want to see it, because I think that builds a stronger community. Because when we ask hey, how's the community gonna be better? Play where you want to play, man. We're all playing the same game. The second thing I would take, it would be something along the lines of the free company. We have a clan system, but it's very basic and
very basic.
And I want to see that expanded upon. I want to see clan quests. I want to see things that we are working towards certain things within the clan right now. But it's that it seems very basic, and I would love to see them expand upon that to help continue to build those communities in the game itself. One of the cool things about the clan is that it's actually crossplay. We have the Work to Game clan in Destiny, and it's on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. And if somebody does the raid on PC or PlayStation, everybody gets credit. It's everybody benefits from it, and it's so great. And hopefully, we'll see that continue on. So, what would we? I think before the podcast, Avalon, you said you had a lot of things that you would take from Destiny and put into Final Fantasy XIV. I too have asked Yoshi P this. We asked him in our interview, and I used Destiny as a reference for my item. But I want to know your list. What would you take from Destiny to 14?
Gosh, there are a couple like I think one of the things that has really kept me in Destiny 2 is the triumph system. Like, I mean, we have achievements in 14, but they're very basic, like, Xbox 360 level achievements. Whereas in Destiny, it's like there's a real challenge, and there's that score that you get that actually matters. And I mean, 14 has tried to do that, but they don't have you display that in any way. They don't like, this is how much I play the game, or this is how much I've crafted. You get that one little image of like, you unlocked this, but there's no way to see that all. And they don't really support the achievement system as much as I think they should. And the Destiny one, like the fact that they tie achievements to like actual things that you want. Like, I don't like any of the crowns I get for achievements in 14. Like, the only things I really go for are the mounts, and that's it. You can only go for the mounts if you're a tank. Like, people would ask me, like, that are new to the game, hey, do white mages get mounts for achievements? I'm like, no. Like, they just don't support it as much. Better PvP, I'd like. Yeah. Like, more varied PvP. Like, it's like what Chris was saying before, just the fact that we can even just go into Crucible, do a couple games, get really frustrated, then leave. Whereas in 14, it's like, oh, hey, Rival Wings. That was great. We need to. It's like, well, you can go on a Discord to get. I'm like, this is like the support around PvP, and I hope they change that in 5.1. We don't know what they're going to be doing in 5.1, right. So like, I hope they kind of revitalize that a little bit.
They divide it. Like, on that note, just to jump in, it's like, oh, you got Rival Wings, Frontlines, Feast. Like, all of a sudden, you have a small community because you don't have cross data center matching, and then you divide them up against that different content itself. And so then it's like, because I go and I said, like, Destiny, back to that first thing, how does it pair well with 14? Most of my Destiny time is PvP. Like, I love it. It's broken, especially right now. I'm really excited about October 1st. But that's like, okay, so it's like, yeah, I'm not PvPing in 14. I totally would. I'm just like, yeah, PvP Destiny. 14 PvE. Like, I would do the PvE stuff, but it was like, that was never really the main draw. But yeah, like, absolutely. And then when I go look at with it in 14, it's like, oh, a 30-minute queue? Well, the reason why it's a 30-minute queue is because people see it's a 30-minute queue. Chris and I talked about this 2 years ago, where it's like, just tell me in a PvP, what you need. Do you need a healer, a DPS, a tank? I don't care. I'll come as that. We have that as a venture in need on PvE. We don't have it on PvP. I will play. I just want to play. Anyway.
And also things to just like to go after. Like, again, in PvP, you have the pinnacle weapons, and that you can chase after. You can chase after things. The Garo event was amazing, and we talked about this. Like, the Garo event was amazing for PvP and revitalized that. People are still working on making sure that they have their mounts and they have all the gear they want before it goes away in 5.1. And I really hope they have that, like, things to chase for. Other things that I really want in 14, like the concept of Destiny's lore books. Like, I don't want to have to wait 2 years to get a new Encyclopedia Eorzea. There's so much lore. Like, I want to be able to re-experience, like, to be able to just read stories, not on a website, not the stories of Shadow or the stories from the wars, like, on a website. I want that in game. I want to be consumed by it. I want to have, like, Ethis be like, my name is Bife, and like just scroll through screens in the game telling me about the story of 14. And like, I think that's a great opportunity for Koji to, Koji and Oda-san and everybody to just kind of like enrich the game with not just like unending journey, but just to have like more material to jump into, because there's so much text in 14 that it all can be lost. And you, like, sometimes, like, we were talking about this yesterday in cast, like the Rising, for instance, like, you get such amazing feels out of the Rising events every single year, but then you lose them to time because they don't archive them in any way. Where in Destiny, they have all this lore that you can go back to, you can read, you can reference, you can remember when you see something else. Imagine if that was a thing for ARR lore after Shadowbringers, like, to be able to go back to those lore books if they had them and be like, oh my God, like, this is what he meant. Instead of having to play through Praetorium and be like, oh, I hate that. Oh, wow. Okay, now I notice the things. Oh, I still hate this.
If you collected them, then I would actually click on them. I see the lore stuff and I'm like, yeah, no one's going to want me to read this. I need to keep pulling, and if it's like, oh, click, you've added this to your collection. And then it's like, you end up just like with the orchestran rolls, just with all the other collection mechanics within 14, like a collection of the lore and everything that's written. So yeah, I love that. I never thought about that.
Imagine if you had a soundboard and when you collect the last book, you trigger the ability to watch a cutscene that you can't watch otherwise.
That would be. I think they went the right way with like sort of the role quest, but then it's like role quest. You got to level up how many jobs? Okay, still working on that myself. I think so. The last thing I had on my list here is at least the way I view the D2 community versus the 14 community. Mm-hmm. The D2 community is very much how do we break this encounter versus the 14 community, which is this is what's required to clear it. And if you don't have this, you can GTFO. I love watching, like, you know, there was the solo clear of Riven. And like, if people want to go that far to clear Riven, if they want to be just a 3-person team, a 2-person team, a 1-person team, and just completely break the game, awesome. I get to watch it. It's great content. But if I have a ninja and, you know, if like I was talking, my wife is a ninja, always been a ninja, always will be. The fact that I kind of have to give her a look when she's like, I'm interested in Savage content, but I have a ninja. And I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry, babe. Like, I shouldn't have to say that to her, though. Like, I should be able, like, I want to be able to take her into, I could take her in a Riven. I'd be like, you can be whatever you want. We can make it work. And like 14 has that, but the community doesn't support that. The community drives this. You got to be this because I don't have the time to wait for you to do something else. Whereas in Destiny, it's like we spent 18 like hours on Riven when we were day oneing trying to weekend one Last Wish. It's the best thing I ever did because you know what? We were able to switch stuff. I was never told, oh, I need to be a warlock right now because I need well.
Yeah.
You know, but I can go into 14 and be like, oh, you know what? Dark Knight sucks. Like that was like before 5.0 and nobody respected the damn job. Yeah. It was like, oh, you got to be a paladin. I'm like, really? I have to be this in order to clear this? Yeah. No, that's not, I don't accept that. I don't accept that view on it. And that's what kind of scares me away from raiding because I'm like, I don't want to have to be something you want me to be. I want to clear this, which is why like when the ultimate stuff happened and, you know, UCOB or was cleared by Dark Knight, I was just like, yep. He did it because he wanted to. He wanted to play that, and he cleared it. And I just wanted to shut like everybody up. I'm like, dude, just say what you want to play.
When people serve the meta, it is sad. Like the meta, I think should be used for the community to better that. You like, okay, cool. It's good to have an idea of what it is. But whenever people like, okay, if you're not in service to the meta, then you can't play with us. It's like, oh, that breaks my heart. It really does. And it's like, I'm like, yo, yeah, play what you want to play. And that's always fun, especially like in regards to Dark Knight. Everybody was like, crapping all over it. And then it's like the first tank to actually clear the ultimate, like back in the thing. And it's like, and the guy's like, I just like playing the Dark Knight. Like, yeah.
I loved it.
I don't.
That was me. That was like all my energy was in that dude right there. I loved it.
Final Fantasy from a breaking the meta mold, like even with 11, I mean, this probably existed in 11, and it was always fun. I played with a friend, and we were always just trying to break the meta. I remember back in 1.0, like the meta was one thing, and then somebody went in with like 1 tank and 7 black mages and beat Garuda before she even did her ultimate move. And they had to change it, but it was like, okay, like you go ahead and do your meta. We're gonna go and just try different ways and find, and then every time you break the meta, it always then tries to become the new meta. So then everybody's like, okay, we're gonna go in 1 tank, 7 black mages, so they'll have to change it. Titan, Summoner used to be able to tank Ramuh because you could have Titan Eggy be the tank, so people would go in without a tank and have the Summoner with Titan. And that's what it was, and they had to change that, and obviously you can't do that today anymore. Anything else you want to take from Destiny, put it and play into 14?
I think that's like mostly the stuff that I would want to put in. Just a lot of I think like what you were saying, it can be reduced to like the one word, the collection mentality from Destiny 2 is so addicting that I would like, I don't want to collect levels. I want to collect things, glamour is the end game, but I don't want to have to collect money to craft that. It's like there's so much RNG involved, whereas in Destiny, like if I work hard enough, if I put enough time into something, I will eventually get that pinnacle weapon. I will get that pinnacle gear. I got all 3 pieces, all 3 sets of solstice gear, and I'm proud of that. Like it took me a crap ton of time, but I did it, and I'm happy about it, and I'm going to get to take that stuff into Shadowkeep. So I wish 14 had more of that stuff.
Chris, what do you think? What would you take from Destiny? Because you just recently came back. We've been playing it prior to WoW Classic. What would you take from Destiny and playing it into Final Fantasy XIV?
So I mean, I said the arcade thing when you came around to me the first time. So I really just like how easy the game is to play. I don't have any questions, but I don't know that Final Fantasy or WoW can learn from that easily, because with a shooter, it's fairly simple, right? Mm-hmm. I need my bullets to hit the target. We joke about it in our Halo nights all the time when somebody has a bad round and then we see that their accuracy is 15% lower than everybody else's. We're like, well, I don't mean to let you in on something, but like, if you hit the target, they die more. And so like, that's really simple, as opposed to like rotations are really abstract. And so if 14, it's not something Destiny has, but it is something 14 would need to keep up with. That is, the role quests were cool, but they still have yet to teach me how to play the game. People are like, well, people who story skip aren't going to know how to play the game. The story doesn't teach you how to play the game. The role quests don't teach you how to play the game. The class quest didn't teach you how to play the game. If you want to know how to play the game, the only way is group content. The trusts are the closest they have gotten to teaching us how to play our job. And it's because if you fail to do your task, if you fail to perform your role, the trust will fail and you will be reset. And you can do it as many times as you want. They will never get frustrated. Now they just need a feedback mechanism to tell you, hey, we've got you at an F rating or a C rating or a B rating or an A rating or an SS rating or whatever, to start helping you write some PvP style, like post-action report, at least at a minimum when you're with trusts, preferably when you're with other players as well, that says, compared to other black mages, your DPS is a little low. You're getting hit by a lot of avoidable damage. And, a good bit of that can be tracked down to that you're not using enough of spell X or whatever. Something to give me a starting point. Now, whether or not I want to improve, that's fine. Put the ball in my court. But right now, I feel hopeless in these. And in Destiny, I don't. And in Destiny, I understand real simple, like, if I'm getting more of their critical kills, headshots, that's not always the head, but if I'm effectively getting precision kills, there's the word. If I'm getting precision kills, I'm doing better. If I'm getting kills, I'm doing better. I can see my desk, that post-action report, and that really simple to understand mechanics is something I admire.
So I think for me, the one thing I would take, and this is kind of what we asked Yoshi P about, is kind of the concept of the glamour level, in regards that once you hit level cap, that XP still has value. And then as you level up in Destiny, and then once you hit cap, you're still getting XP, and then you just get these,
you get the engrams.
You get the engrams. A little like, yeah, here's some stuff. And it's like, that's what I would love to see within 14. I would like it to even kind of just add some kind of fake level, because XP isn't necessarily that valuable, but whenever you are at cap, it has no value whatsoever. And so content that awards XP is less valuable. Quests, especially with the level sync quests, like that system they did in Shadowbringers, genius. Like, I love it. I can go just pick up all the quests on my alts, work through them, have fun. But Fates, like all of that, like they added some value to it. But if XP didn't lose value, then even if I'm at cap, then all of a sudden if I hit glamour level 1 on warrior, it's like, I would love to see the merit point system from Final Fantasy XI brought in, but I don't think the mindset of the Final Fantasy XIV being a game you can take breaks from works with the concept of what a merit point is. So you have to make it glamour based. You have to bring in like that currency, which that Fates now have, at least the new Fates, so that you're like, hey, yeah, I'm doing something extra with it. And it's just a thank you. Because anytime, especially on a challenge log, like whenever you're at cap and I voted for this person. Oh, challenge complete for the week.
You're like,
0
oh, no,
XP.
wasted it.
No, porque? It's just like so frustrating. And that's what I like about Destiny. It's like, great. Oh, cool. I gotta, and you still get that, that, hey, check it out. Thanks for continuing to play this game. Yeah. And it's not required in my mind, so it's optional. If they
tied the Mog station in some way, I know so many people in my community that would just be like, so like if they would grind these dungeons out so they could get, like, because you have the concept of like engrams and bright dust and stuff. It's like, you don't need to pay money, you can just play the game. And it's like WoW has that with like being able to buy subscription time with gold, right? So it's like, if you ever happen to be good at this, you can buy subscription time, so you can earn stuff. You can like earn glamour without actually having to pay for it. I think options should be there. even if people don't take it. Like I have my silver that I buy every season because I just want everything. I want to collect stuff, but I know there are people that want certain things, so they'll get rid of some exotics that they don't need anymore since you can pull them out of collections, and they'll get bright dust.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll buy those things just for the sake of having played it. And Destiny is doubling down on that by having bright dust be something that you can get from bounties.
Mm-hmm.
So they're encouraging you to play the game and then be rewarded with stuff that other people would pay money for.
Yeah, and the fact that they're also letting you do a la carte and not separating the community from the content, so Chris can come to the moon even if he doesn't get Shadowkeep. So that ideally, the goal of it becomes that sales pitch, as opposed to this walled-off garden saying, "Hey, it's really nice over here. You just trust me and throw over $60 and I'll let you in." As opposed to like, "Dude, no, it's really nice over here. You want come check it out. Oh, you want to go do this stuff too? Okay, well now it's a little bit, I think, an easier sales pitch because it is your quote-unquote subscription. You're just opting into what content you want to reward, right? It's the it's the best feedback mechanism, the dollar, as opposed to a forum post or a Twitter rant. Like, oh man, I wish, like Ragnarok Online would just do X. Like, they're not listening to that. They're following like, oh, people really responded to this. The content was good. They played it and they paid for it. Great. Let's make sure, because that's a win in both books, right? Where it's like, yep, company continue to go on and they're making more game. Great. And then you could keep playing and paying. Now, I'm gonna shift over for kind of an interesting question, because we talked about 5.1. We talked about 5.1, hopefully late October, early November time frame. Are you excited about like the potential Blue Mage changes with 5.1? Because when we talk about it, Blue Mage has been very, like it was this really like exciting thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, it's limited, and now they have these things. Have you played it at all? Are you interested in what 5.1 is going to bring?
I haven't gotten my Blue Mage to 50 yet.
Oh, right. What level is your Blue Mage?
31.
Okay.
So I mean, like, I'm excited at the concept, and I still need to try the mass carnival for myself and stuff like that. But I think it'll be interesting to see the Blue Mage level cap brought up, so then you can see Blue Mages in Heavensward content and breaking things in there. Other than that, like, I guess I don't really have a great purview on what will be changing, other than just like, oh, this goes up, you can learn more skills, cool.
So I'm hopeful that we get to see them, like, I think they'll probably take them to level 60, and that'll be cool. But I hope that we get to see them actually start to enter in more content. I don't want the matchmaking. I think matchmaking is, you can't have player agency and matchmaking and have a healthy community. I think you can have one or the other. And that's where I think a lot of people have drawn criticism of 14 and modern MMOs, where that's what, bringing it all back full circle to WoW Classic. It's going to be interesting to see, like, if people stick around with it. Do people really like player agency, or do they like, or do they ultimately like convenience? And that's the battle that's being waged. So I'm really interested to see what they do with Blue Mage, because if they can just get it into the Palace of the Dead, I think that's a lot of fun content for Blue Mages to kind of go play around with. But you can't do the matchmaking, which is fine. But it's a matter of like, how do you then give them the spells, and how do they do that? So hopefully we get to see some fun stuff with them, with this patch. And they said every major patch going forward, they're going to increase its level. What limited, so Blue Mage is a limited job, like in 14, and what limited job would you like to see introduced next? They tease Beastmaster and Puppet Master, but it doesn't have to be either of those two.
I actually, Beastmaster is interesting, like just having a different take on the pet idea, or just being able to use that. I think they have so many amazing like creatures in 14 that being able to have some type of control over them, or being able to use them in battles, would be really, really cool to see, and just something that's really different. Other than that, I'm pretty much on the same page when it comes to like other limited jobs I'd want to see. I
think Chris's camera froze, but I think I can hear him clicking, so I don't know if his mic is back, but we'll find out here in a minute. I think for me, like, I would love to see like a time major or type of healer kind of brought into that system. I ultimately want to see 4 different limited jobs that people can build out interesting party comps. To see kind of them try to attack different content. But even back to kind of the merit point system, even Zoila in our chat right here is talking about get rid of overmelding and add in the merit points to replace it, etc. I think merit point system could actually really thrive in the limited system, because then it's like, okay, it's not required for what people consider the, you know, the main content, which is the Savage raids, right?
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it's like you have all of this whole other world that you can open up into these systems. It's the same thing with when we talk about what to bring from Destiny into 14.
Yeah.
Like, it would be so great if, like, Blue Mage at 50, you're not 50, but if you're at 50, 51, well, you don't actually level up, but yeah, you can start earning merit points and you can start customizing out your job even more. Because when you take out matchmaking, like, just go nuts. Let people go nuts. And if it's not doing the current content or have a risk of breaking the, you know, the end game, the 5.0 raid, like, I honestly wish they would let them get up and always be one patch behind. So in 5.1 they could do 5.0 stuff, but that's my wish. We'll have to wait and see what ultimately happens with it. Now, my final question, as we start to kind of wind down, as we come up to our hour here, is how do you balance your playtime? You said earlier kind of 80-20 is where you're at right now, but you're talking about two different major grindy games. What, like, how is it that, like, when you look at it, like, as a content creator, do you even, you know, like, would you recommend that? Or would you recommend, is it easier just to focus in on one game?
I mean, it really depends. I think, like, we were talking about this a little bit before the cast started, and it really depends on what I sort of want out of each game. You kind of hi kitty. You kind of hone in on what you want out of it. And, like, you know, Shadowbringers was such a great story, and so I realized that I really like the story bits. And, you know, like, I feel like maybe I got Omni 60 way back when because I needed stuff to do in 14, and I used that as a way to fill content. But now, since I have an entirely different game that I can also go to, my mind is being pulled to that and all the things I can do there. But, you know, there's some things I want to do, and, like, I know I'll never really want to do Savage raiding unless I have a really specific team that I can go in with.
Right.
Like, I have to be pickier. I think that's really what it is. If you have more than one game, but you're not a variety streamer, like, then you have to be really picky about what you want out of that game, because you can't get everything out of both.
What is a variety streamer? Because I've heard that phrase brought up. I've heard it brought up alongside of, like, forget the expression, like a titty streamer, of like, you know, it's like there's these essentially categories that people put into these into streams. As a streamer, as yourself, what do you consider yourself as, and what are these definitions? Because I believe it's somebody who just plays a lot of different games, but, like, it just seems like people are actively making a decision whether they're going to be one or not, and I don't get that logic. Educate me.
So the whole at least the way I see it, the whole variety streamer thing is just this, like, it's an ephemeral sort of, like, your games are ephemeral, like, you're just, and I think everybody sort of has the game type that they like to focus into. So, like, there's no true variety in that, like that you're going to be playing absolutely everything that comes out. Like, there are going to be people that are going to focus in on retro games, people that only focus in on the triple A's, people that only focus in on roguelikes and stuff like that. So there are different levels of that, but that the variety streamer is very much a broadcaster that's focused on, you know, people are coming there because of the person that's on the screen, because of the talking head. And it doesn't matter what game they're playing, they always come for the talking head. And that's why you see it usually tied to people whose business model is more kind of selling themselves as a product rather than the experience that they're trying to provide.
Okay.
So, like, you know, some people will go to, you know, you have the people that are, you know, top of the directory on WoW, because those are the people that you would go to watch WoW. But if they were to play something else, like maybe League of Legends or maybe Fortnite, then, you know, you'd have somebody else that you'd want to go to. The variety streamer is somebody who can play anything. Or I guess the true top variety streamers are the ones who can play anything, and they'll have that same audience come out because they're just there for that person. Okay. That's what I believe it is. Do you need to be that? No, I think you can have that same type of environment with one or two games. It's just really trying to find your comfort level. I think a lot of people are just very concerned with trying to find the way to the top. And so the easiest way to do that is to try and emulate. So a lot of people started emulating stuff, and we've seen, and it didn't work for them because a new game would come out and you just get, you know, stuffed to the bottom of the directory. So that doesn't feel good. you kind of just find games that you're comfortable with, and finding that comfort level, then you can have at least have a foundation to build off of.
Okay.
I could talk about that forever though.
Well,
so.
and if you have a few minutes, we'll like after we wrap the podcast, maybe we'll let Chris reset and come back, because I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that kind of in a post show if you have a little bit of time.
Of course.
Let's go ahead and let's go and wrap up, because it is time to do so. So do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share about this, or anything we talked about on the podcast regarding 14 Destiny, WoW Classic, and then also at the same time, where can people find you? Like, make sure you let people know where you're at.
All right. Well, I'm really to close all of it, I'm just really in a happy place. Like, it's the whole touchy feely thing, but it's, having the Year of Shadows be what it is, seeing 14, entering the sort of golden age of 14 that we're seeing, and hopefully it continues with 5.1, 6.0 and beyond. And now, like, seeing Bungie free from Activision and being able to make their own choices and have that autonomy that they've sort of always wanted, it seems like they're freeing. It's like, I am so happy. And I mean, I've been following Square, and I wanted to work for Square when I was really young, and I've been following Bungie since, Halo 1. So it's like, I'm just really proud to be supporting these two companies at this point in time. And I think, like, I can't really ask for anything else. I'm not looking for anything else. My schedule's filled, and I'm glad it's filled with just 2 games and whatever else I get to play from those companies. But yeah, I think we're in a really, really interesting place for gaming, because, we, like, for going back to the WoW topic, it has been 15 years. So you have a lot of people that are sort of growing up and in situations where, like, want to experience that nostalgia. But, like, what does that nostalgia mean in the purview of 2019? What does that mean today? And I think we're going to have, I really hope, like, I really want to see WoW Classic succeed too, because I want a reset back to what matters to gamers. And, like, Bungie is showing that, and Square is showing that they can listen to that stuff. So to see Blizzard do the same thing would be amazing, because I think Blizzard is starting to lose a little bit of relevance under the corporate veil. And, like, to see other companies do things like this so freely, I just want to see Blizzard become the best company they can be to serve the gamers, which is what they've always wanted to do, rather than, like, corporate interests or stockholders or things like that. Other than that, yes, I'm Avalonstar. You can find me on all the social medias as Avalonstar. I am a passion-driven gamer, and
I like the title.
I just came up with that right before the cast, and, like, I'm just a normal geek who likes to game and talk with people and discuss things like this, and yeah. I just like to talk. Twitch.tv/Avalonstar, and YouTube. I do YouTube videos as well every now and then. Definitely not as much as these two, and but usually focused on UI in 14 and coming soon in Destiny 2 as well.
So guys, check him out. All of the links will be in the description of this video and beyond below. Be sure to give him a follow, give him a shout out, and check him out. He's got really great content, really great community to be a part of. And so we're really happy to have him on the podcast today. So we've got lots of plans right now. We're just really focusing in on guides. Really just trying to help teach people how to use the controller within 14, and how essentially, like, for me, like, as I'm playing and returning to Destiny, like, how to get people back into it, because New Light's going to be an interesting kind of starting point. So just the fact that, like, I have such a passion for both games, it's awesome to be able to sit down with Bryan here and have that love of, like, these games are great and they're so different, and that's a beautiful thing, because they both appeal to me in that regards, because it's like, I think to be able to have that variety ends up being such a value. Just you don't have to be a variety streamer, but just to have something else, just to compare, like, oh, I like this about this, I like this about that. But we're also on YouTube, Twitch, Mixer, Twitter, all the socials. You can find our links in the description below. We just recently created a Casually Hardcore podcast highlights channel, which will be seeing clips from this podcast up on there as well and beyond. So be sure to go hit the link, check out the highlights channel. Hopefully you guys sub to it. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers at some over here in the next couple of months. I think we're coming up on like 400. It's mind-boggling just how the community's responded for that. Since Chris is, we'll have to let him restart here in a second, but I'm going to go and do the main outro. Join us next week, guys, where we have Spofi on the podcast. Going to be talking more about video games, MMORPGs, and Final Fantasy XIV. So we're really excited about that. And obviously, if you missed our last podcast, we had Xandri talking about the story of Shadowbringers. Really, hopefully you guys we'll dive in and check out our podcast and check out the link for the playlist below. But beyond that, for Work to Game, Bryan and Chris and Avalonstar, thank you so much for watching this podcast. We hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.